Welcome back to Red as Rain. See, I remembered the show name. I almost forgot. We haven't done it in a while.
Good job. Good
Uh,
job there.
yeah, the season has long been over. By the time this has come out, the championship has been decided. Uh, Difficult to see a former Rain player score the winning goal in that one, as Bella and I have lamented to each other. Um, yeah, it's an interesting time, right? Because uh I think really the next thing on the soccer agenda in the world is the next FIFA window, right? In a few days. We're in the off season. Um, it's an interesting time for the club. That is one of our talking points. I know if you watch our soccer shows, I was yelled at for not having the talking points shared to our other hosts, which I've
It was
done that
actually
today.
it was a basketball show, but it's fine.
Did I say? I thought I said basketball show.
You said soccer.
Oh, I'm making things up. See? No. Yeah, so, we'll go over the loss for Orlando and kind of the feelings on this 2025 season, a nice rebound for the club overall after what happened in 24. We don't talk about that. Um, we'll kind of look at where the club sits at currently. I know a lot of people, at least, looking at the Facebook group because people have opinions, and that's fair. Have a lot of opinions on what needs to happen. Um, a few players were up for the end of season awards, which have come and gone. There are some thoughts on that, which Bill and I discussed not heatedly, but like
We
there
had
were
the same
discussions had.
opinion, but we were both upset about it.
Yes. And then kind of what, our keys to this off season. It'll be really interesting to see what the Reign are able to do now that they've got, you know, more actual footing than they did a few years ago when there was this big inflection point in the club's history, right? So yeah, the loss in Orlando, I mean, just really tough. Was just kind of a weird situation, right? Because, you play to that draw. If you had won, you got to host. You stay in Florida. They knew they were going to do that. They had packed to stay in Florida. They stay there. Um, you know, Unfortunately not able to prevent an early goal. We get a McCutcheon goal in the 21st for Orlando, Haley McCutcheon 21st. Seattle's not able to equalize, at least in terms of the FOT mob little momentum waves. Had a good amount for Seattle, and I mean Seattle took a ton of shots, 17 shots in total. Goal and goal in the third in expected goals. Laura loves expected goals, right, Bella? She would.
Yes, the thing that she fully doesn't believe in.
Eight shots on target though for the Rain. That's kind of hard to deny. Even though if I now I'm remembering it, I don't think too many of them unfortunately challenged Anna Morehouse as much as I would have liked. As I texted Bella several times, she'll remember that. It's frustrating, right? Because what's the main thing, at least reaction wise, that I see from the fan base is it's just another game where you're not able to convert chances, you're not able to generate enough. I'd say maybe you did generate a good amount in this one, but obviously it doesn't matter if you don't convert, right? You end up losing, Marta makes a hell of a run in stoppage at the end while you're trying to get a last ditch goal. Luana, am I messing that
Yep.
up? Yep. They give her the penalty. She's got a great story. I kind of was hard for me to be mad at her getting the penalty. Just like, damn it, in the moment. And Seattle loses 2-0. Orlando would get out. I believe, yeah, it was right after. That's how that works. Yes, to Gotham. That's right. They lost to. I didn't remember what side of the bracket they were on because Kansas City lost in the first round. So like we had talked about, I think in the last episode, if Seattle had won, they could have hosted. And hey, all of the Kansas City, listen to me. All of the Kansas City fans who got all butthurt about the comments that Phoebe made after the loss to Kansas City, because Phoebe was very upset. They had lost a tight match. You know, they had this Shield celebration. A lot of Rain people had feelings about the Shield being celebrated there, right? We talked about this after it happened. Everybody bookmarked it. They said, "Okay, we'll see." They all danced on the grave when the Rain lost, and then you lasted what? 2 more days later? Like, fuck off. Okay, that really annoyed me. I was like, I think it's difficult to take what a player who was obviously very upset and, in the heat of the moment is saying. I think that's difficult. I think if maybe you give her more of a cool down period, I don't know. I don't know how it goes, right? I don't know. I just didn't like them dancing on Phoebe for that. But that was a bit much. Because then 2 days later, you were feeling the same way. So anyway, um, yeah, Bella, I don't know how much you want to talk about the Orlando match specifically after I've said all of these words. Yeah, just maybe it is on the Orlando match what didn't happen, if it encapsulated anything from the season for you. Because again, obviously, this is a match. You don't score anything in the play. You don't score a goal in the playoffs. It's not great. I know, playoff football is different, but I know that's the big thing for the fan base is failing, and I'm sure some of it is seeing teams like Kansas City, Orlando, right? What they're able to do offensively. There's maybe some envy there. So yeah, how would you look at the season as a whole and or that loss to Orlando in that playoff match?
Well, you know me, I've always got things I can say. I do think that what there's no doubt that it wasn't their best performance of the season. The players and Laura said that post game, like no one thought like, oh, we way outplayed Orlando and we didn't deserve to lose. That doesn't mean they did deserve to lose. But I think it reminded me of something that Jess Fishlock said to me after she came back from the Euros, and I had asked her um, if there were any lessons that she took away from it. You know, she is a player who has played at every level, done everything possible, and I was wondering if there was anything she learned from it. And what she said is that it really just reinforced the thing that she had known all along, which was that at a level like a Euros, like a playoffs, the margins are so thin, and the smallest mistakes will screw you essentially. Um, and you have to, and it wasn't even like the first goal was like major mistakes or anything. It wasn't great defending. It wasn't a disaster of defending. Um, but the margins are so tight, and what killed me was that they were creating good chances. Like they were getting in good spaces. They were getting the ball to the players you want taking shots, and the shots were not living up to what they needed to be. So it felt like they were doing like 98% right. And then they couldn't get that last bit. And it was a little surprising because it had felt like maybe they had gotten over that hump a little bit this season. It had felt like, you know, like last year it was all about like we were lacking quality, we're not creating chances. This year it felt like there were a lot of games where there were minimal chances, but they took advantage of the few chances they had. This game, 17 shots, 8 on target, and you don't score, whereas Orlando had 9 shots and 4 on target. Like, granted, the 8 saves you forced Anna Morehouse to make weren't particularly difficult saves, um, but they were creating chances. It didn't at any point look like they were out of the game or like Orlando was running them over. So it was just really it was a bummer. I didn't want to see Lou go out like that. Um, and in my heart, this game is 1-0. I don't count. I personally refuse to count the goal at the end. Credit to Marta, credit to Luana, but my opinion is that the game was over and it doesn't count because the ref did blow the whistle moments after the restart. Um, and and it was just it was clearly like frustration on the foul that gave away the penalty. Um, and so it was just a bummer. But at the same time, I was looking back at the game notes that the team sent out after, and the game marked the NWSL playoff debuts for 10 different Reign players. 6 in the starting lineup, 4 as substitutes. Like that is a massive amount of inexperience and youth, considering you have 11, players that start on the field and how many, however many subs were allowed at this point. I want to say 4 or 6, and for some reason my brain is not remembering today. Um, it's been just too many different sports going on. Um, and so 4 players came on. It has to be 6 actually, because Jess came on as a sub. So yeah, five. Cool. I was so wrong. Cool. I promise I watched this sport and I know what I'm talking about, but my brain is fried. Um, and so, 4 of the people you brought off the bench were making NWSL playoff debuts. I think it's unfortunate that Maddie Darlene kind of got banged up when she did. I think that hurt them. Um, and it also sucked, again, so happy for Lynn, but really bummer to not have her for the second half of the season because she was so impactful when she was available. Um, but I think there is still I think the key is that there's a lot to build off of. Like I had asked Laura about it in the post game, and what she saw from her young players making those debuts, and what she wanted them to learn from it. And it was kind of similar to Jess's message from that I just mentioned before. Like the margins are tight, and you've got to show up differently. Like it is a different beast altogether. Which sort of brings me to like a point that I was running past you when I drove you home the other day. Like the, and I would, I'm also bummed we don't have a postseason press conference because I would actually really love to get Laura's thoughts on this. But like the thought that teams that are good in the regular season, or at least certain teams that are good in the regular season, struggle in the playoffs. Like there's a reason that the double has only been done so many times. Orlando and then the North Carolina Courage, when they were pretty much fully undefeatable. Um, and you look at Kansas City this year. Obviously, Kansas City, that was a bit difficult because they lost Temwa Chawinga towards the end of the season, and she was just the league MVP. Certainly, losing the league MVP at the time when they did, like immediately affects how you play and everything, and that certainly hurt them in the playoffs. But both times Gotham has won a championship now, they have entered the playoffs as the last seed. They have had mediocre regular seasons. Like they have had some good performances, no doubt, but like generally stumbled towards the end and like barely gotten into the playoffs and then come up with those massive performances in the playoffs and gotten them to a championship. And that's not to say that like one is more valuable than the other, because I think they are valuable in their own ways, and it's sort of you have to sort of decide which one you want to prioritize to an extent. Um, but I am interested to see, you know, if this team in the future can do better in the playoffs. Like, if I recall correctly, the year they won the Shield in 22, they went out in the first round of the playoffs. Um, because they had a bye, and then it was
Wait,
when there were
remind what you
six
said
teams.
22?
That's when they won the Shield, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I remember that because that was the championship in Washington, right? In
Uh,
DC. Because I
yeah,
was so confident that they were going to go to the championship that I bought airfare ahead of time. And instead, I got to watch what Portland win the fucking God damn it. Sorry.
yeah.
Um e...
I'm pretty sure because it was the 6 teams, so they had a bye as a top 2 team, and then they lost in their first play in
Yep,
their
they
first
won the
playoff
Shield.
game because because
The 1 point over Portland. Yeah, and
right,
then they lost to Kansas City.
and then like in 23 it was, I remember it was such a big deal because it was like the first time they had won a playoff game, period, like Challenge Cup, play NWSL playoffs, anything, since like 2017 or something, or 20, like forever ago. I can't
Yeah.
remember exactly because it has now been several years ago.
Mm.
Um, but I remember like writing in the lead up to that like it like felt like they were cursed in the playoffs. Like they could not find success in knockout games. Um, and I don't know if that's maybe some coaches are better in playoffs versus regular season. Like Latko is really good at developing players and won the Shield, and then the World Cup and the playoffs are now an example that maybe he's not as great in knockout games. I truly don't know. Um, just sort of like a more of a food for thought thing that has sort of been on my mind since Gotham won again. And
Mm.
I mean, Washington is a good team. Like, and Washington is a particularly good offensive team, and they got so thoroughly shut down, like that,
Yeah.
and so it's just a fascinating thing to me. It's a bummer. I still think that success in the regular season is incredibly valuable. I would like to now win the championship next year for Jess, and I think that is my thoughts.
Well, it's funny you mention we're going to kind of go into, further on this with the playoffs, right? Because it makes me it's funny because doing this in our basketball show, I'll say basketball correctly this time, with you and Rowan, it always like kind of leads into a bunch of different ideas for me, right? If you've ever seen the Loki show that Marvel did with all the different timelines and they branch off, that's what happens when you guys talk, is that I have all these ideas and I want to talk about them and I want to present these ideas, but then sometimes I don't, and I'm sitting there like, please have ideas.
I think
Um,
that's both just us being majorly ADHD. Like
well, yes, I
as
don't
I
know how
pop
much
my
of it
little
was.
bubbles.
I didn't have enough. I did have enough Tylenol growing up. Anyway, the the thing with like the postseason presser, not the postseason presser because we didn't get one. The post game presser after the loss to Orlando, uh, it was it was a weird energy because it was Lou and Jess, and it just felt like a calm. Neither of them, like they were both at peace, and that's good, right? You want that. I saw Jess the other day. I mean, not Jess, Lou the other day. Um, Rough and Tumble held kind of an impromptu event where Lou and Jess actually were behind the counter. I only saw Lou. I wanted, the fans to get that experience because I was like, hey, I already know you. Like, I can talk to you whenever I want. You, like, everyone else should enjoy this. So I left after a while. I said hi to her, and she seems happy, which is good. She's going to spend some time with family, I think, later in the off season, and because she hasn't been able to do that, for an extended period of time, right? Um, but it was interesting with the presser, especially with Jess, as I'm looking at a picture of Jess on my wall right now. Um, because the message was, and you bring up the players making their playoff debuts, right? Is what did they want them to remember is how much it stings, and as you mentioned with the margins in Jess, right? Is what matters, and we'll talk about it more with the state of the club, which is the next topic, and we could have just transitioned, but I have my other thoughts. But you've got a Maddie Darling, you've got a Jordan Bug, you've got, I mean, someone that really took a big jump this year. It was when I say big jump, as if she was like here previously a lot. She kind of was Sally Menti. I mean, Sally Menti plays a big role, does take a knock and is out for several weeks, right? Emery, the jump. I mean, she had. Well, no, she didn't even have a goal in 24 because it was not credited to her. But
Oh yeah,
I give her the goal in the
yeah.
Megan Rapinoe tribute match. I don't
Megan
care.
gave her the goal, and that's all that matters.
There you go. Emery. We could go down the list. You'll get Ryan Brown back. She's on the younger side. She's not super old. That's mean. She's not old, but Ryan Brown's on the younger side, right? It wouldn't hurt you to have that depth. Um, Bug, Maddie Curry, she is what she was 24 this year.
This is her
Um,
second season, yeah.
it's crazy to me to think about because just watching her and talking to her, she seems more experienced, in my opinion. Mia Fishel's younger,
Don't
right?
forget about my
Claudia
queen
Dickey's
Sam Meza.
Sam Meza, who really burst onto the scene this year, right? Like you've got so much of this group. Oh, they spelled Shea Holmes' name wrong on Spot Track. That's not how you spell Shea. Ainsley McCammon is someone we talked about in the later episodes of the season, right? So Coco's not old, right?
No.
So I mean, there's a lot. I think there's a lot to feel good about. Um, and again, I need to remind myself to save this part for where the club sits at currently. But I disagree with the whole you need to uproot things, you need to throw it out. I understand it's frustrating, right? To get here, you know, be one and done effectively after having you've heard me say this with others, especially with our UW Women's Basketball podcast, right? With the close games. Even with like, should they have been in that game with LSU? Probably not. Probably not. But the fact that that was in control, like you were in control of hosting a playoff match if you're the Reign. You had that possibility in your hands. You didn't seize it. As you mentioned, it would have been huge to have Lynn down the stretch. Obviously, again, that's more important. The family aspect of this is more important. Um, but I can understand the frustration there. But my thing I wanted to go on to was people who want to move on from Laura. Hi Zira. I think it's crazy to think about that, because the playoffs can be such a crapshoot. You know, look at you talk about the 23 run. Did they really have any business kind of beating Angel City and San Diego the way that they did? I mean, there's the Schross.
Well, I think that they fully should have beaten those teams. I think the goals that they beat them with were absolutely hilarious, and Veronica
Yes,
Latko supremacy forever.
that's more so my point is that you can be San Diego that year and play as great as you did, and you lose off that.
Well, and that's kind of how Orlando lost to Gotham, that Jaden Shaw
Yeah,
goal.
yeah.
Like
You
they
see what I'm saying?
it's one brilliant moment. And sometimes you have them and sometimes you don't. And the key is to have those players on your roster and hope that they can do the big thing in the big moment.
You see, so that's my point is that, I don't know. It feels like I'm going back to when I brought the discourse about some fans thinking that they should have moved on from Lou and or Jess earlier than now. And they're not even moving on from them. They're retiring. Um, but the discourse about Laura, because there were some fans who were incensed about the Chat GPT thing. I asked about that. We got that cleared up. And Scott Parkinson made a whole post about it. Anybody like the players were asked about it. I think after the first Orlando match in the regular season, of the two, not the one back at home, but the one to end the regular season, Phoebe kind of laughed it off. This is a silly question. Um, I think that's kind of fed some agendas because I think some people have wanted Laura gone for a while now, and that's their prerogative. I just my big thing with someone saying you need to fire the coaches, like unless it's just abhorrent, you need to get out of here. This is really bad. Like Fareed, um, I'm like you need to have a contingency plan. Because God forbid you get left out here in the dust, and it's not a good coaching cycle. It's not the good like situation to look for a new head coach. You don't want to be left out in your ass. Is my point. So I'm like, if you fire Laura, where are you going? Are you promoting Scott? Does Scott want to do the head coach thing again? I don't know. Like, I just think that's silly. I don't know. I don't really understand that thought process. I think it's just maybe more emotion than anything else. Because I mean, you talk about the culture, who's and how important so many players talk about that, right? I mean, Veronica, she was nearly in tears at Lumen, I think, in the 23 season, talking about the culture and how much it had helped her, right? Um, So I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because I'm sure it's me probably reading comments I shouldn't read. Um,
You do a
but I
lot
don't
of
know.
that.
I do, unfortunately.
Um, I think people want to have high expectations and they want to win all the time. And I get
Sure.
it. But if you think about life, it's simply not how it works. Like it just um
Unfortunately not.
no. Cuz the whole reason it feels good to win is because it's hard and because only one team can do it out of so many. Like if you if you take away what makes it difficult to achieve, it doesn't feel the same. Like, even like, okay, baseball is not my sport, but even the Dodgers winning back-to-back World
It's
Series,
still hard.
like
It's very
yes,
hard.
they had a stacked team and everything, but like they went through a lot. There were still a lot of
They
really good
struggled heavily.
still a
They
lot of
at one
tough
point
games.
looked like they could, yeah, miss the World Series.
Like,
100%.
and I'm like, oh well, I mean, I rooted against them because I was like, I don't want back to back, like fuck that shit. But like, they for LA fans that meant a lot because it was a huge accomplishment because it was hard because they were rooting for something. The reason the Mariners almost getting there hits so hard and feels so devastating and good at the same time was because of how much history there is and how difficult it is. It's the MLB is a massive league. There are so many teams. Like there are teams that suck even worse than the Mariners. Like there you can't you don't you don't win by making constant changes.
No,
You
no,
win
no.
by making smart changes over an extended period of time. I think Gotham, they won out with hiring Juan Carlos Amaros. They paid a lot of players a lot of money,
Mhm.
and they have the draw of the New York market. But also before that, it was Orlando, and you know, sort of the season that no one expected, and Seb Hines really being a good coach. And I think if you talk to coaches around the league, they have the utmost respect for Laura. And
Including the coach of the year.
yeah, like there's no I don't think you can argue against three NWSL shields. Like they're like yes, Vlatko had multiple NWSL championships. He didn't win a shield until this year with Kansas City. Like the it, it being a coach isn't easy, and to win so much over various years, like maybe it's the Seattleite in me because with the Sounders too, I've had the same head coach for a long time. But it's not like the Sounders have won everything every year. They have, won something big maybe every other year. Like you can't you can't have constant success even if you have the best roster. Kansas City arguably had the best roster, or maybe Washington, like, or maybe you thought Gotham had the best roster. Well, then why did they suck during the regular season? Like the thing that makes sports so special is the uncertainty of it. It is the fact that at the end of the day, a coach can make as many plans as they want, and then maybe Juju Watkins goes off for 40. I'm all over the sports right now, but like,
You sound like me.
like there just you can't game plan for everything. You can, or maybe you can have the best plan and the other team just shows up better, or you have a Rose Lavelle who can just create a moment of magic.
I
Like
had a Rose Lavelle once.
I know, don't remind me, even though I guess I was the one who brought her
About to
up.
talk about it.
um, and so I think about all the players who have come to the Reign talking about wanting to play for Laura. Most recently, Mia Fischel talked about playing under her the U23s and feeling like Laura helped her develop and like she connected with them. And even Lynn was excited to play with Laura when she, came from Gotham. Even Kristen Press and Tobin Heath talked about training with Laura ahead of the Olympics when she was sort of helping Vlatko out because the U23s weren't playing. Like the those relationships are invaluable. I think the Seattle example that shows that is the Storm. Like what it seemed like maybe was missing a lot of time was some of those coach player relationships, or not you know there being some sort of divide and the message not really getting across. It's hard to say what was going on there, but it often felt like part of the reason they hired their new head coach Sonia Raman is because she is purportedly so good with player relationships. And I think that is Laura's biggest strength, and she knows it too. She said it several times. Like, she has always talked about how she thinks about her players as human first, and how she cares about them and she cares about their development. And I think what we saw this year was players that she cares about continuing to develop. Jordan Bugg, Sam Meza, like, even if you just think about like Sofia Huerta switching to outside back, like Sofia
Mm.
Huerta becoming such a brilliant outside back, Emily Sonnet becoming a brilliant center midfielder.
I
Like
want you to make me the best six in the world.
like
I'll never forget that.
those are the things that Laura is good at. And so, and I want that in a head coach. So if she needs her assistant coaches to maybe give her a little bit more tactical help, which I don't particularly think. I don't think she's a bad tactician by any means. I think to some extent she's been working with a young team, and like she'd been used to working with Megan and Jess and Lou as like your 90-minute players, starters, who you tell them something and they're like, okay, yeah, I got it, I am like a brilliant soccer mind, none of that is a question mark for me. Like, I'm not expecting a Jordan Bugg and an Emery Adamas to come straight out of high school like having that sort of tactical knowledge. I'm sure they are absolutely brilliant players, but there's stuff you have to learn, and having a coach like Laura who will support you through that is invaluable. And I think that's why we will continue to see these players get better and grow to the level where they can win a championship. Does that mean I think that there are no like additions to the roster that should be made? No, but I do think that the team is in a very good place, and that is because of how Laura treats them like humans. And like, I mean, even if you like all the Gotham post games after they won the championship, so much talking about how it was a special group and how they'd been through so much together. Like, you even because we had talked about this on the UW podcast for basketball, like UConn talking about the power of friendship, like
Yeah.
on their way to a national championship, like that shit matters.
Hmm.
And
No,
with folks
100%.
like Laura, that is already half baked in. And you can be upset that they didn't immediately find success, but I think going from second to last place to fifth place is pretty dang good.
Yeah, no, I've been smiling so much because you've done this perfect transition job of getting into the status of the club, right? Because you could argue that the last 2 years, 24 and 25, have been transition years with all of the thing you talk about it being hard, right? And it's a great point. Again, you sound like me. We've infected you with the baseball mind over here. But,
Just a little bit.
it's just interesting because yeah, that is what makes it sweeter is the pain that you have to go through. You know, as you mentioned, you're not sitting here and winning everything. It would be great to be like, I mean, the Aces recently, where it seems like they
Mm-hmm.
win all the time. Um, you know, uh, but that's just not reality. You talk about the best stories in sports or of those franchises that have been tortured for years and years, unfortunately. They make movies out of shit like that. The Boston Red Sox, we're going to use more baseball here. There are some people who are like, I listen for the women's soccer. Shut up about men. And I'm sorry. We can talk about women's baseball. I did get my hat in the mail today. Um, but they've made documentaries about the Red Sox and their curse for not winning a World Series for 100 years. Someone's probably going to make that shit when the Mariners finally win. Hopefully, it's next year and I can be in it.
I
Anyway,
mean, the Mariners not winning for so long is the reason that I watched postseason baseball this year.
it's why this city
Full
lights up
games, not
so
even just
much.
highlights asking you what happened. I
No,
watched
Bella
full
was watching the
baseball games,
games. I know, I know.
and I
I
did
got the
not want to,
texts.
but I was invested because
Hmm.
I wanted it for everyone who wanted it.
Oh, wait, I just thought of something you need to watch. Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna keep talking while I do this though. But yeah, I mean it's the journey of these things. If you just focus so much on the end result, you kind of take the life out of it. And I'm more like this season will always be fun for the Rain because of the younger. I like Sally Menti's a great story. I'm gonna hopefully work on a Menti sister feature at some point.
Yes,
Obviously
go dogs.
the Husky Menti is on a Elite Eight run right now. So, oh Jesus. Okay. Well, this is really long, but I'll explain it. Um, you know, uh, yeah, I'll send that there for you for later. Um, the youth, you talk about the youth, and that's so important because you talk about going through things, right? How would things look, whether it's to us on the outside or to the players on the inside, if it wasn't Laura and the culture she's built with the OGs trying to get through the sale? There's a lot we will never know about that sale. That's fine. But all we know is it was very challenging, obviously on the field. We saw that in 24. It was very apparent. Um, but players kind of offhand or in segments have talked about how hard it was off the field, right? And this was your first full year with that new ownership. You see some improvement there, which is great. But there's a lot that goes on the mental side of it in that regard. Uh, whether it's training, obviously it's like an arms race across sports for these women's professional teams to build these facilities, which is great. It's great.
Hurt their roster building too, massively. I mean,
Yes. Oh yeah,
you
we
prob
talk
you
about
you
Gotham. You
maybe
talk
don't
about Gotham.
lose Rose Lavelle and Emily Sonnet if that
Think
sale
about
isn't underway.
right, and so you go back to talking about the high schoolers. If it's not Laura, is there any guarantee they get Jordan Buck, who could be the best defender in the league? I don't know, very soon, next year, even if I'm getting ballsy. I mean, Ainsley McCammon, Emery, like a lot of people didn't give a shit about Claudia Dickey before she was consistently the first choice starter. They saw something in her. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's silly to abandon not due process, but the process here and just say, nope, I don't believe it because I don't think this club has the future that it does, obviously, without Laura. Obviously, we give credit to Leslie, but it's not Laura pulling all of these strings here, like a marionette. Um, but even the relationship that those two have, right? Like, you mean talk about the respect. G obviously felt that she wasn't going to get the minutes. They didn't sit there and squabble about, oh, no, we need you. There you go. I mean, fuck. If you want a great example of that, Sophia, they were in the potential for a playoff spot in 24, even with how bad it was. And right as it seemed like they might go for it, I need to go on loan. I need to go to Olympic League. Like they could have said no, we need you, but they didn't. We talked about it, right? So, I just I really hate that because I think, as you mentioned, there is something to culture. You talk about you go back to the Mariners. They weren't the same payroll as some of these other teams, but
The power
they
of
love each other.
friendship.
Power of friendship's very good. Okay. Oh, I guess I guess we can throw this in there because I don't think it has enough legs to stand on its own. But with Jess not deciding, but today officially signing the extension. I don't know. What do you say about that? Because I mean, I don't think she's going to say it, but I have to imagine this is the last. This is it, right? Um,
Certainly feels like it. However,
okay.
you know, I kind of thought Marta was going to retire after the double, and then she re-signed for
Yeah,
2 years in Orlando.
yeah.
Perhaps not traveling for international duty with Wales. She gets back in some kind of physical shape, and she's like, you know what, I can play another year. I wouldn't expect that, and certainly the 1 year contract gives her the opportunity to reflect at the end of the season or mid-season or whenever about when she wants to be done. um that's kind of what Lou had been doing for the past several years, signing just 1 year extensions and giving herself the opportunity to um really figure out if she could keep going, if she wanted to keep going. But I think the biggest thing is just that it's great news. It would be stupid of the club to not re-sign her. We know Leslie is smarter than that. If Jess wants to return, you let Jess return. And especially with Lou no longer on the roster, we don't know if she'll take on what, if any, kind of role she'll take on with the club immediately. But I mean, Jess will be the oldest person on the roster by far.
Damn.
Claudia and not sorry, not Claudia. Claudia's not the man. I meant to say Sophia. Sophia and Lynn would be the other sort of older veteran players at that point. Um, and I think it's the same thing with Lou. Which, if you didn't buy this shirt, then what were you doing? Because we both saw this go on sale and immediately bought them.
Literally
Um,
during the episode,
oh
I'm wearing a
yeah, it
different
was
shirt
during an episode,
today.
wasn't it? Okay, well that one's good too, but not exactly related.
Well,
But I think similar with Lou having that veteran presence is key. But then also, I mean, Jess had 6 goals this last season. Like she was on
and a
fucking
good
fire.
amount of them came in the second half after she came back.
Actually, all but one of them, I believe, came
Oh,
after the
Jesus.
Euros. She had that one in the North Carolina game when Jordan Bug
Oh,
scored that banger.
mhm.
And then the rest came after the Euros. Um, and even if she's only playing 45 minutes, which is what she did for plenty of the season, she is an incredibly impactful player. And honestly, like the way she was able to impact games as a substitute this season, because she is such a brilliant tactical mind, a brilliant football mind, like giving her a half to watch a game, and she's talked about this when I've asked her about it, like being able to watch a half or however long, look at the spaces and see what her team needs, and then come on and immediately do that because her brain works like that. Like that that is the ultimate impact sub, and she still can start at times. Like I don't think we have a and this is no discredit to the young attacking midfielders on the team, but I don't think there is an attacking midfielder on the team as quite as talented and as tactically brilliant as Jess Fishlock. And that is just because she is one of the literal all-time greats of the sport. Like if there was someone better than her, it would be like we have Rose back on the team. And even then I think that's more of like her physical ability is different from Jess's. Um but Jess has just a brilliant ability to see passes, to be in the right spots. She's not as fast as she was never the fastest, but she's, also
They
not
got
getting
little legs.
faster. Yeah. She's not getting faster. But, it's the same way that like when Lou played defense, she never needed to be the fastest because she knew where to be.
Yep.
And now that we have,
Positioning so
you
big.
know, with really solid defensive midfielders like Sam Meza and Ainsley McCammon and Ankara James Turner before she kind of lost out her starting spot, that really gives Jess the freedom to go and play really almost fully an attacking role, not have to track back as much on defense, and put all of her energy into attack. Not that she doesn't still play defense and contribute to that, um, but yeah, she did like joke that like her favorite game is like 15 minutes long. And so she doesn't want to do a ton of running. But I think, if one, I would love to win for Jess, and two, I think she's just a great person again to have. It'll be interesting to see like because her and Lou are not the same personalities. Like they are leaders in very different ways.
Hmm?
And so I think it'll be a little interesting to see how Jess's leadership comes through without Lou balancing it out. Um, but I still think that in terms of like knowing what a game needs, there is no one better than Jess Fishlock. And even if she's on the bench, you know she is giving Laura her tactical input.
I
Like
have
you,
photos of this.
yes, no, and we're like we've seen it at practice. It'll be like everyone doing
Oh
something,
yeah.
and then just Laura and Jess like at a whiteboard, and Jess and like Laura writing something, and Jess being like, no, 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 this instead. Like you get an assistant coach, and you get one of the best midfielders of
Built
all
in.
time. Like NWSL MVP not that long ago. Like
Oh,
so, I'm just happy because she when when she was asked after the playoff game about her returning, she was less committal about it than she had been
I know.
when we had asked her
I
about it
was like,
previously.
hey,
So I
what's
was like, okay,
this?
Jess, you're walking back your decision now. That's wild timing. So just very happy that we can at least get a little bit more time before another OG retires. And Zira has decided that I am yelling too loud about sports again, so she's gonna leave. Come here, you're fine. Come here, you're fine.
It's I'll say this. I would put the I'm still gonna put the bet out there, but I think I'm gonna do it anyway. I think if they win it for just this year, I'm just gonna get a tattoo of the OGs in some capacity or some way to commemorate that. I'll probably still do it, but hi Zero. You should
Yeah,
do it too. I think you should get a tattoo as well. Um,
I would rather get like a high quality print for
dog
my
tattoo.
house.
Well, whatever. I'm gonna mark up my body permanently. Yeah, no, it's so funny seeing there's so many pictures where they're both like this, and you
They
can
love.
obvious. I'm like, what are you? Who are you guys are on the sideline? Who are you hiding this information from? Um, yeah, okay. I figured we had to put that in there. In the where the club sits currently, because I didn't think it should be its own individual topic. The end of season awards. This is gonna be a thick one. The episode in total, but. Anyway, in addition to being named the NWSL second 11, Claudia
No, Zira.
Dickey and Jordan Bug were named to the NWSL best second 11. Dickey was up for goalkeeper of the year. Excuse me, Jordan Bug was up for defender of the year. And Maddie Darlene was up for, excuse me, rookie of the year. In my own opinion, when I saw these, I thought I thought Bug maybe had a chance, but I didn't really feel great about it. I didn't feel great about it either with Maddie. I thought the best chance that the Reign had to take home any hardware in this regard was Claudia Dickey. And at least like I'm gonna turn Bella on this and just let her go at it. Because we had this conversation the other day after the UW women's basketball game against lovely Vermont. Did you know Vermont played basketball? I didn't know that.
Mm.
Um, given the durability, knock on wood, touch wood, given the durability that she showed, the sheer amount of saves, let alone the quality of the saves that she made, I thought it made sense. AKB's fine for Gotham, sure, I get it. Lorena for Kansas City, opinions on that. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't think you were surprised by the other two results, Bella, but obviously your goalie thoughts are where, I'm steering you towards. Um, did you have any thoughts on the other results and why? What did you feel about the um goalkeeper of the year decision about maybe potentially Claudia getting extra hardware besides being on the second 11?
Yeah, I was actually surprised by Tara McKeown being named Defender of the Year. Um, Partially because every time she's played for the U.S. Women's National Team versus when Jordan Bug has played at center back for the U.S. Women's National Team, I feel like they've looked so much better with Bug. But also, Washington's strength this season was more offense than it was defense. And it's not like the Spirit had like they didn't have a bad defensive record by any means, but like she didn't I think she's a good defender, but I don't think she stood out to me as the best defender for the equalizer. We did sort of staff picks. I did not contribute to that story, but several of our writers did, and none of them picked Tara McKeown. Like I don't, that one feels a bit like a fan pick because she's like a great story, having only started playing center back 3 seasons ago, and having played forward her whole life up to that point, really. So I was surprised by that one. I thought should probably go to Kayla Sharples, um, or I didn't necessarily think Bug was going to win, um, because of the Reign's overall defensive record, but I do think that she is one of the best defenders in the league. Will be, you know, um, a part of the U.S. Women's National Team for the long time, and I mean I've compared her to Naomi Girma since the very first game we saw her. Like that is the calmness she plays with, but she can also score bangers, which is just endlessly fun. So the Defender of the Year did surprise me a little bit. I thought Lily Real was deserving of Rookie of the Year. She was super impactful for Gotham. Um, at the same time, like Maddie Darlene, 4 assists and 4 goals, and she became the first player in NWSL history whose first 4 career regular season goals were all match winners. So, that's kind of where I was like picking Maddie over Riley Tiernan, because even though Riley Tiernan scored a lot of goals, Angel City finished out of the playoff race, and they weren't necessarily like, certainly some of their goals were impactful. Other times they were sort of consolation goals, or sort of not affecting the end result. Um, and then goalkeeper of the year is where I fully believe that Claudia Dickey got robbed. Um, some of my colleagues at the Equalizer did think um, that Lorena deserved to be goalkeeper of the year, and there are, to an extent, I understand. Kansas City let in, or Lorena let in 13 goals all season, which is an insane amount. Half as many goals as the next best team. Um, at this, and they say that, you know, even if she had a good defense in front of her, that, you know, how many shots you take or are given up or whatever, that good defense being anchored by a good goalkeeper matters to some extent. And I don't entirely disagree. However, I do think that don't smile at me like that. Um, I do think that the quality of shots that she faced, um, and thus the quality of saves that she had to make, in addition to like numerical quantity of saves, is nothing compared to Claudia. Um, you know, Not only was Claudia the only goalkeeper to play every minute of the 2025 season, um, which is kind of unusual. Normally, there are, it's not unusual for there to be multiple Iron Women goalkeepers, but she was the only one this season. She made 88 saves, and she faced the second most shots in the NWSL this year with 343. 343 shots faced, and she let in 29 goals. Her, like, she, stats per Chris Henderson on Twitter and Blue Sky, she finished with the best shot stopping numbers in the NWSL despite playing behind a defense that finished 10th in post shot XG faced. The Reign gave up an average of 1.42 post shot XG a game, whereas Kansas City gave up 0.74 post shot XG per game, almost half as much. Now, I know Laura doesn't believe in expected goals, but in this particular situation, Laura, you need to believe in expected goals because it supports your goalkeeper. But like, it's just one way to show with stats that the quality of shots and the number of shots faced by Claudia was far and away like that of any goalkeeper. She topped the league in goalkeeper goals prevented per 90 minutes and total goals prevented. Like, I think Lorena is a good keeper, but I don't think she had to constantly, I don't like, Claudia had to like pull saves out of her ass to save this team. Like, I don't know how else to put it. She had to come up out of nowhere with the biggest saves to save results. Like I think it was the San Diego game where she made such a brilliant shot that the stadium crew thought it had gone in and set off the firework things and the smoke behind the goal. But it hadn't gone in because she had made such a brilliant save that looked impossible. Like, and even not on shots, just preventing, grabbing crosses, everything, her contribution to build up play. Like, I just don't think there is an argument that any goalkeeper played more effectively just straight up as a goalkeeper this season. Like she changed results. And in the past, like, I think about years when Jane Campbell has won goalkeeper of the year. It's not because Houston was good. It's because she kept them in games they shouldn't have been in by pulling saves out of her ass. Like this is like you I think it's a bit of a cop out to say, oh, you just pick the goalkeeper on the best team. Like, yes, Kansas City were the best team, and yes, and Lorena was a good goalkeeper, but it's because her team as a whole, not even just her defensive unit, her team as a whole did so much to prevent chances that the ball barely came to her. Like, she only had to do so much. The amount of defensive work that Temwa Chawinga did was absolutely insane. Like when we beat Kansas City, we had maybe a couple shots the whole game. And it was just like that Linby and Dolo moment of magic that won the game. And then like a bunch of Claudia saves and some, good enough defense the rest of the way. Like there is no goalkeeper in the league who changed results like Claudia Dickey did. And it is the reason that she is, in conversation for the number one spot with the U.S. Women's National Team. It is the reason we and Laura believe that she should be the number one goalkeeper for the U.S. Women's National Team. Like, I just, and some people pointed to, I think the only thing you could say Lorena did better than Claudia Dickey was face penalty kicks. And at the same time, Lorena only faced 2 penalty kicks. She saved one and the other one hit the bar. And like, again, are those changing results? Like Kansas City won the Shield with like 5 games left. She didn't even need to change results, but even then she didn't change the results. And I think I am disappointed for Claudia because I think she should be on the best 11 first team. I think she should have been goalkeeper of the year. I don't fault people for voting for Lorena, and I don't want to discredit what Lorena did in her first season with Kansas City. But I think you have to consider, and in the past it has been considered, what the defense in front of the goalkeeper looks like and how much they are doing to change results to save their team. And Claudia just stands out miles above the rest for me. So I do fully think she was robbed. And I was actually kind of shocked that she didn't win. So yeah, rant over for now.
No, I mean that's the point of why we had the talking part. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. I just remember like what the summer part of the season where it was like we were just in Claudia's world. We're all living in it. Uh, you know, what? Because the extension, the call up. You know, I wasn't sure because this is an interesting point. I'm gonna bring up in talking about Fallon. Because it's still kind of an interesting discussion, right? Everything that happened there. Some fans still kind of look at what she's Manchester United. So
Yeah, she is.
Sorry, the Arsenal in me does not like that. Um, people get some envy looking at the Manchester United. Hey, Fallon's carving out her own great career. That's great. But my point in saying that is I'm not as potentially worried or pessimistic as I was when that change first happened. I'm like, hey, this is your starting goalkeeper, and you leave it. Like you know,
I mean, it was kind of like the transition from Casey Murphy to Fallon. Honestly, like this club has
Casey
had
Murphy, Jesus.
U.S. Women's National Team caliber goalkeepers for most of its history.
Hmm.
There was a bit of a break in there, but they got Casey Murphy after she had spent a season or two in France, and she was looking like one of the top goalkeepers in the league before they traded her. Then they brought Fallon in. She was again starting to look like one of the top goalkeepers in the league. You know, then sort of the switch happened and she decided to move because she didn't want to be the second option. And I think if we had been sort of like rotating through keepers, struggling to find someone who was good, yeah, I would understand it. But like Claudia has been a standout goalkeeper since college. Like she she was, the top goalkeeping prospect in that draft for a reason. And, she may not have the same height as Fallon or Casey Murphy, but she is a brilliant shot stopper who seems to just keep getting better, keep getting more confident. And I've said it before, like I think part of the reason that she took over that starting spot was because she was so good at playing with her feet, and I think that has continued, and continued to be very important, especially as that has become an increasingly big part of the game. You know, on Katrin Berger being sort of the biggest example of um, a goalkeeper who is very, very heavily involved in her team's build up, almost looking like a full on midfielder at times. Claudia doesn't venture that far up the pitch. She's not that kind of goalkeeper, but um, I mean, she's just been so. I mean, even Lynn Biondolo now has her little song about Claudia being so good. Did
Oh,
you not from the podcast? And like also has one of the pairs of claws and loves to play around with them. Like you know, players and coaches know that she is good and will continue to be so. I think she is only 25 now. She's 25. She's 25. I'm going to be 25 in February. Like, she is basically the same age as us. She has time to get even better. And with continued US women's national team call ups, continuing to play in the NWSL, like, obviously we would like the defense in front of her to be a little bit stronger. We don't want her to have to be making so many saves, but what you do want is knowing that you have someone back there who can. Because she had games where she had to make a ton of saves, and then she had games where she only had to make one massive save, and she came up and she made that save, and that's what makes her so good. And Laura's talked about it, and we've talked about it, and I don't know how much I can say. She's just so good.
I lost my train of thought. Yeah, the 25 part's a bit crazy. Okay. Let's wrap this up with um I know I kind of skipped over it, but now I'm looking over at, well, I guess I can tie that in. The kind of the state of the club, right? What do you think? Because I'd say that we have a professor where we can ask things, but we um what what does this club need to accomplish this off season, right? Because, there's a lot made up of the scoring. At least if you look if I can sort by position here, if you can, nope, okay. Spot track says no, actually, you can't do that. Um, you look at the forward group, right? You'll get Lynn back next year. Um, Hope everything goes well, of course. Emery Adamas will take another step in her development. Maddie Darlene was take another step in her development. Mia Official, what did we hear all year, Bella, about Mia Official?
That we can't. It's a long-term project, and I can't wait to get a full preseason for her.
Hmm. 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 I mean, as much, I think Jordan gets a lot of unfair rap. There are a lot of people who like to hide behind screens and just say that Jordan Heidema sucks. I think that's unfair. Jordan's our age. You talk about Claudia being our age. Jordan's our age. Um, Maddie Mercado went on loan and ripped up the USL, which I understand they're different leagues, but she was still impactful when she came back. Um, and you've got Coco, in terms of the forward group. Um, I know I focus on them because the offense is everybody's big decision, is everybody's big focus, right? What what do you think that this club needs to do in the offseason? Because you could say, and maybe you don't want to be complacent, right? You want to, if there's an edge, you want to get it. I know a lot of folks, and I think you and I talked about it in the offseason, last offseason. People see the game breakers that other clubs have. You talk about Chewinga a bunch. I think you'd still put Rose in that category. Not as maybe at the peak right now, of course, but you had her.
Say
And
like a
they
Sophia Wilson though, Mallory Swanson, Trinity
yeah,
Rodman, all those kinds of players.
those kinds of players, people see them and they want
Actually,
that for
Gift
this
Monday
club.
too, I would put in that conversation. She was so good for Washington.
Um, you know, what do you need to see there? Because you're losing someone who, you didn't have to rely on Lou this year on the back line, thankfully, but still that's an important player, as you mentioned. Don't know what she's gonna, her role will look like. In talking to her the other week, I know she said she's still gonna be around. She doesn't know what it's gonna be. She said they're gonna figure it out. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I expect that. But you know, I don't know. It's what do you look at maybe when you look at this roster or even thinking about it with this group? Because again, we go back to it. It was like a transition year. You got so many young players who are, taking their next step and developing. You've got players that you were without. You miss Sophia for a chunk of the season, you know. I don't know. It's interesting because you are kind of hoping that some of the players that are on your side are starting to take their next steps to helping you push to the next level. But it's funny because you're saying that about like what, a 20, early 20-year old person. Like, I don't know. What do you need to see for this offseason to be considered successful when we get to like the first training of the year and we're reflecting on when the first training of the year when it's cold and we're talking to whoever that they've acquired, and which evidently will the photos will then be put into the media guide because my fat head talking to Lynn is in the media guide.
Oh my God, I didn't even see that.
Yeah, it's
Um,
great.
I mean, first, the want to go over so the players who won't be returning.
Ah,
Ji So and Julia Lester were loaned out through the end of their contract, won't be returning. Veronica Latsko, Lauren Barnes, Hannah Glass, all retiring. Anna Maria Sornogorcevic,
oh yeah,
expiring
AMC.
contract. And then Michaela Clough, who came in at the very end of the season, did not make any appearances, is a free agent. So they have 23 players on the roster for 2026.
Hmm,
I would expect Lynn Biondolo to maybe miss half the season. Again, we don't really know how far along in her pregnancy is. I can really
for sure.
only judge from like how much she is showing in the videos that she's posting everywhere. Um, but obviously, giving mom sufficient time to come back and be healthy is important. So even if you get her back for just the second half of the season, even if you just get her back for playoffs, that's great. That's great in my book. Um, so kind of rounded out to maybe 22 players, knowing that Lynn is going to be out. The players that you are losing, outside of Lou, didn't really play all season. obviously G played earlier in the season before she was loaned out, but AMC made sort of random sub appearances, um, and so I don't think there's any gaping holes. I feel like it's similar to what I was kind of thinking last off season, where if you can make some sort of big move to get an impact player like they did to get Linby and Dolo, you do that. Like if Rose Lavelle wants to come back, yes, please. Um, but outside of that, I think you have good pieces that are continuing to develop, and particularly, with it's tough because they made them the official edition halfway through the season, and we saw glimpses of what she can do, but the most we saw her goal scoring was really when we were at practices,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
hasn't quite translated to the league yet. But if she can become the player that the league that the team, and there were several teams that tried to get her, right? If she can get to the level that um, everyone fully believes she can, and thought she would be at before she tore her ACL, and when she was at T Grace and when she first signed with Chelsea, like if she can get to that level, I think that is a massive difference maker, because I think the thing with Jordan, I think Mia and Jordan at the end of the season were kind of suffering from the same thing. They were doing a lot of great work defensively. They were getting in good positions. They were, they had good hold up play. They were making good connections, but they didn't have the final finish in front of goal. I think that's been Jordan's, perhaps drawback, or thing that people have criticized her for. And it's tough because I think what she has done outside of goal scoring is so valuable. But if you're gonna play her as that nine, you need to also get goals out of her.
Yep.
And I don't know if that's pushing Sophia higher up and getting more crosses in the box. Like I don't know what the solution to that is. I am not the coach. I played soccer my whole life, but not at a particularly high level. Um, and so there's no, like I think last off season you could say the glaring thing missing was a goal scorer, so they went out and got Lynn. And if you have Lynn and me official, my God, like that is the kind of front line that should terrify people when it's in form. And I do think that Mia having this sort of half season and then a preseason, and then hopefully like finally getting back to feeling 100% after her ACL injury could be a massive difference maker for this team. Like, you don't need her to be the golden boot leader. You don't need her to be Tema Chawinga. But if you can get 10 goals out of her, and then you're getting 5 from Emery, 5 from Maddie, you know, 3 from Jordan, whatever it is, like maybe 3 from Mercado put in there, you get a couple from Jess, 3 more from Jordan Buggs, 1 or 2, a couple penalties from Sofia Huerta. Like, you have the goal scorers, and I think so many of them can play in so many different positions. Like, Maddie Darlene, we've seen her play as part of a back five. We've seen her play as the winger of a front three. We've seen her play as part of a front two. Maddie Mercado can play all along the attacking line. We've seen her play as a 9, a winger, as a 10. Jordan, we've seen play all over. You get my point. Like, Coco too. Like, we've seen her play as a winger. We've seen her play as a 10. Like, I think what needs to be figured out is how to best mix all of their abilities, you know, because the thing is they have so many talented attacking players, and I and at some point they just sort of they couldn't quite find each other when they needed to, or they were maybe the formation wasn't quite right to get the best out of all of them, or they weren't quite like on top of the formation. I don't know, but I don't think you are glaringly missing anything. Maybe you want to add another creative midfielder, but also maybe I'm just sort of like stuck on missing Rose.
We keep
um,
going in circles. We keep looking for Rose Lavelle.
yeah,
She's
I keep looking Roosevelt. But I feel like the back line was solid. If you get Ryan Brown back, maybe you want without Lou as an option, maybe you want to bring in a veteran defender as an option back there. Honestly, um, but I think overall, like the roster's in a good spot, and you're not, it's not like you have a ton of, like we mentioned, this 22 to 23 players under contract. Like you're not. This is not the Seattle Storm off season where you have 4 players under contract and everyone else is free agents.
yeah.
Like, and so unless players are asking for a move, I'm not tempted to move anybody. Now, I'm never tempted to move anybody because we get very easily attached, um, and don't like to see people leave. But I just, I think the roster is in a good spot, and it's like this year was a lot of growing pains, and they'll probably continue to go through some more next year. But I think they got a lot of valuable experience from this year, and the if anything, like the roster was too deep at times. You know, like I don't. At no point were we saying, "Oh, there's not enough options on this team," right? Like certainly injuries can change that, but if everyone is healthy and happy, you have a really good, really deep roster. I mean, James Turner didn't even play for most of the second half of the season after looking outstanding the first half of the season. Like Sally Menti came in out of nowhere, like just absolutely stunning. Like even Ainsley McCammon getting those minutes at the end of the season, I was shocked. I was like, okay, where's this girl been? Like, and young players, they have to go through that experience. And, you know, so, unlike previous years, I really don't think there's any major holes on the roster. I think it's, again, if you can make a game changing addition, absolutely do it. If you have the cap space and, someone is interested, if you can get fucking Alexia Putellas, get fucking Alexia Putellas. That would be the the funniest and most amazing thing to ever happen.
I'll get
That
the OG tattoo then and there.
Yeah, that is actually what I'm now manifesting. Alexia Putellas to the
Make
Reign.
the fake graphic. Make the report graphic
Exactly.
right now.
Put that on Twitter and see if I can gain any traction. Get the what's that? A soccer Donna to post it. Um, like so,
You can recreate that in Canva like in
I
10
mean,
minutes.
even their short-term goalkeeper contract replacement for Cassie Miller, Niku Purcell is getting called
Oh
up to
yeah.
the U23 U.S. Women's National Team.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you just and if Cassie Miller is healthy, she's a very solid backup goalkeeper. Like there just isn't a spot where I'm like, oh yes, there's this thing definitely missing. If you can get a game changer, you get a game changer. But sometimes, like, you keep going with the core you have.
I think that's the biggest thing, and where I'm at is that, in doing this show and kind of scaling back, right? Is that yeah, you don't have any glaring, hey, you need a striker up top, you need a left back, so on and so forth. They don't really need any of those things. They're not in like desperate desire for it, right? So yeah, if we're gonna go to the if a game changer, if a game breaker becomes available, if there's an opportunity, I don't doubt that Leslie and the club would try to swing for that
I
and
mean,
then have
it's what they did with Lynn. It's what they did with Mia. Like they're fully
right.
aware of how important that
And
is.
from what I understand, they tried to do that while the sale was happening,
Right.
and obviously it's tough to get people to commit to something like that, right?
Yeah.
So, it's yeah. Obviously this is going to be the slower time of the year, so we probably won't do the show unless something significant happens. I'm going to
Unless
say
they
this
acquire one of those game changers. Let's go,
when we
Alexia.
get the Puteas exclusive one-on-one not one-on-one, it'd be two-on-one because Bella would be there. I think she'd
Thank
strangle
you.
me if I did the one-on-one.
I would actually
Um,
kill you. I would drive to your house and murder you. And you know I know where you live.
yes, do you see this? You, the viewer, do you see this? Well, if you're on podcast, you're like, who are you pointing at? Yeah, no, if there's anything of significance, we'll do that. I keep joking about it, but if we were going to get an end of the season press conference like there was last year, we would have had it already, I imagine, or we would have some idea of it. I doubt we will. We're getting in, well, and then there's the international break. So like, we'll see. But yeah, I think it's just I understand. Listen, I don't do these things where I bring up fans' comments to like I know everything because I don't. Let's be clear. I do not.
I do.
Um,
Just kidding.
obviously. Why you're here. Um, but like I understand there's a lot of emotion in sports. We're gonna go back to the baseball thing. As soon as Gino Suarez hit that grand slam to right field, I started crying instantly because it was just like the greatest thing I've ever seen in that ballpark. After Jorge Polanco hit the game 5 walk-off in the ALDS, I just started laughing like a maniac.
And I still fully can't believe he pulled that shit off. I
I
really thought they
think
were going to lose that game.
if I had kept laughing, I would have been put in a straitjacket. Um, yeah. So, listen, I understand the emotional side of it, but I also realize there are largely plans in place for things. There was a plan in place when they moved on from Fallon. That was Claudia. You know, they've had to kind of scramble and put it together since the sale kind of came about. But I think this will be the second year of full stability that they have that we're aware of, right? And again, you look at so much of this roster, and you could argue that they're on the younger side of things. I'm going to go down the list, and you're going to hear me say it. Emery Adamas, Lynn Biondolo, older side of things. Ryan Brown, younger side of things. Jordan Bug, Maddie Curry, Maddie Darlene, Claudia Dickey, Mia Fischel, just Fishlock. Just please don't be mad at me. But on the older side of things, Shay Holmes. Don't know why they have. That still bothers me. That's not how you spell her name.
I can text
Um,
Taylor, relax.
ah, Sophia Huerta on the older side of things. Jordan Heidema has older side of things. Emily Mason,
No,
Ainsley
even Has is
McCammon.
like 28.
Yeah, Phoebe's not. Phoebe's like I think she's in that range too, right?
Yeah,
She's not.
Phoebe is the oldest defender other than Sophia, and
She's
she's like 28.
27.
Yeah,
Sally Menti, Maddie Mercado, Sam Meza. Like there's less than 10 players. I'd say closer to like 6.
I would say there's like max 5 players over 30.
Sorry. That yeah are in that range. Like there's gonna be a leap that these players will make. Um, and that's exciting. That should be exciting. I would rather have a plan and like a process to watch than we're gonna go all in and just kind of rotate and rotate and rotate and not really have something to build towards. Right? Like if they touch wood, if they do reach a championship in the next year or two, it will be through the process that was, you could argue that built through the culture that was started all the way back with the OGs. And while it's been a difficult thing to not win with those three, win a championship, not the Shield. They wouldn't have gotten to that title without that for sure. right?
I
So
mean, if you think about like the 2021 Washington Spirit winning the championship, they were led by like Trinity Rodman and Ashley Sanchez in their like first and second years in the league. Like, yes, they had veterans, but they were led by young players. Like, even if you look at Gotham, Jaden Shaw, like massive part of that team winning. Like you absolutely can win with young players, and even if we don't win in the next year or two, I say you have a very good shot of winning in the next 3 to 5 years. Now, I still I like the idea of winning with Lynn and Jess and Sophia. Um, Lynn obviously has multiple NWSL championships. She doesn't need any more, but Lynn and but Sophia and Jess do not. Um, so I mean, I think you have to be. I mean, I even just think like watching the games this season, you couldn't help but be excited about the young team. Yes, sometimes they played soccer ball this season, and
nah,
it was like you just have to struggle through defending forever and then you score somehow. And like that's not always the most fun to watch. But there are very talented players on this team and they will continue to get better and I think play with more maturity and it's I think it's just going to be really fun to watch.
it's sad because we probably won't talk about them for like a month. So we'll see. No one. Now I want to just start picking from the Arsenal squad. I'm like, I'd like you. I take you. Hey, I mean,
You want to
ask
take
Kim
Rosario
Little. Say, Kim,
Russo?
can you start? Hey, no, she
Well,
helps.
we could bring
She
Kim
helps
Little
us.
back on loan again.
Yes, and
Maybe she'll play more than 3 games this time.
have her just stuff the rest of the Arsenal squad in her luggage. Say, hey, we need some help here.
Don't they have Mariona Caldente? I'd take Mariona Caldente.
Mm-hmm. Hey, but no, we have to defend our Champions League. Mm.
Arsenal, every time I watch Arsenal, I'm like, how are you winning any games? I swear to God. Like,
They're they started everyone in the Arsenal women's fan base started freaking out after they lost that. They were up 2-0 on Bayern,
and then lost 3-2. Yeah, that was one of the games I watched.
and then they wanted Slagers out, and I was like, let's calm down. And then we beat
No,
Real Madrid.
I think their coach has been actually very good. I don't
I know, that's what I'm saying. The fan base
it's the
went
rest of the team
crazy.
that I'm like, I don't know what is happening.
Uh, we haven't had Leigh Williamson for a
Like,
bit, so I think we'll be fine. Um,
oh yeah.
hmm I love me
Okay.
women's
New
football,
thing
that's
we're
for sure.
manifesting is Mariona Caldente to the storm. Did I say storm
So,
to the rain? Mariona Caldente to the rain.
I mean, they only
Mariona
have
Caldente to the
like four
storm.
people on this fucking roster. So yeah. I guess
She's
if
also
they're
Spanish. That's close to Agua Fam, right?
oh
Anyway,
my yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah. If you don't know, if you want more of the ramblings that Bella and I have in regards to women's sports, we do Bella's now she's kind of lumped into our Seattle Storm roundtable. We've just kind of assimilated her into it. And she's all a main contributor to our UW women's basketball show, the Husky Women Shoop Show. So if you want more of that, um, you know, that's on our channel, it's on our page, wherever you're hearing this, whether it's podcast and you're hearing me like try to like point to things or like, what is he doing? I can't see him. That's where it is. Who knows? Who knows what else Bella will do? She just kind of. I didn't think you'd be into baseball. Here's more baseball for you.
I didn't think I'd be into baseball either, but
Tell them to get a Seattle team. Women's Pro Baseball League, please, Seattle, when? I will break the news. Uh,
I can get into hockey. Go Torrent.
yeah. Okay. Well, I have a show for that. So if
What is
you
that response
want
for?
to get the rules set up on that, we can have you come on that show too. You're just gonna be on
Oh,
all the women's shows.
nonsense.
And then they scored the goal, and I was like, so yeah. Again, we'll have to wait until there are there's news relating to the rain. But yeah, until we see you next time, take care of yourselves. Be well. Do whatever you can to make today a great day.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, where are you going to watch all the away games for Seattle Reign FC this year?
Away games. Well, since Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, I was thinking of coming here if that's okay with you.
I think that makes a lot of sense. See y'all here.